Okay, so we're going to continue working now on our advanced shapes worksheet. And like we did with our basic shapes worksheet, we're going to use our shapes tools, same four as before. And we're also going to be using some of our Pathfinder tools. So we'll get started by clicking on Window and go down to Pathfinder. And that's going to open up this panel here. And we can drag it and put it wherever we want. I'm going to tuck it over here out of the way and we can start. So I'm going to start with my rectangle shapes. And we will draw a rectangle here. Now the tendency might be to draw another small square off the edge of this one, and you could, but the good thing about Pathfinder tools is that they actually let us overlap. So I'm going to start from the bottom corner there and draw up. Okay, so now we have our two shapes, and they're sitting one over top of the other, and we're going to come over here to our Pathfinder tool, and we're going to use the Unite tool to take those two shapes and turn them into one. So you'll see where they overlapped is now one shape. Okay, I'm going to give that the red color. We're going to do the same thing with this shape, but instead of our square, we're going to rotate it 45 degrees. We're going to do that using the Shift key. And then let's get it to the perfect size, like that. And I'm now going to move it over to the right, holding the Alt button to duplicate it. Get it right there. And then I want to duplicate that movement. So I'm going to hit Control D on our keyboard, and it's just going to basically duplicate what I had just done. So now we have all three shapes. And again, I can select all three of them. And I want to come back over to the Unite tool in our Pathfinder tab and make them all one shape. Pretty simple stuff so far, right? Okay. Now we want to be in our rectangle tool again. And here's another one where we could probably draw a shape like this. And then maybe we could do a square coming off of this side and a square coming off of this side, and then another square at the end here. You're going to see some spots where they don't really line up. If I zoom way in here, you'll see those points don't really line up. And I drew 4 squares. Instead, what I want to do is half the work. So by drawing 2 squares here, one big one here, and another one here overlapping, I've done half the work. I'm going to select both, and instead of combining them, which if I click on it, would just create that shape, and I can show it to you here. Okay, so it filled it in like that. I actually want to use a different tool altogether. I want to use this one on the right called Exclude. And what it's going to do is exclude the space where those two shapes overlap each other and keep everything else. And now when I fill it, you can see that it's done just that. So I'll give it that nice blue color, and we'll move over to our circles. So we're going to start by selecting our ellipse tool. Now we'll start on the green one because it's very similar to what we did with the squares. So we're going to draw 2 circles, one there and another one that I will move and hold Alt to copy. We're going to select both shapes, hit our Unite tool. We've got that shape. And let's do the blue ones at the bottom. So I'm going to draw some ovals. Let's draw the first one. And then I want to move it while holding Alt. I'm also going to hold Shift so that it drags it in a straight line. And then once I get that first one in there, I want to hit Control D on the keyboard to duplicate that action, and then one more time so that I have all 4. I'm going to select all 4 of my shapes, and I'm going to use that Exclude tool again to exclude where they overlap and keep everything else. And you'll see that I've got that shape. So if I hide my template layer for a second, you can see those. The last one here is a little bit different. We're going to use a different Pathfinder tool. So again, I'm going to draw my circle. And I'm going to move it and hold Alt to copy it. So I've got two circles here. The second circle sitting on top of that first circle, I'm going to use to actually minus from the original shape. So it's called minus front. So whatever's in front, so the one that I did most recently, is going to knock out that part where they overlap on the other shape, just like that. Okay, so I've got my circles and my rectangles, and now let's move on to the polygons. So with my polygon tool selected, I'm going to start by drawing a polygon shape that we know has 3 sides. So I'll use my arrow keys to make it 3 sides instead of 6. And I'm going to get this triangle drawn right here. Now what I want to do is use my black arrow tool to move it. And again, I'm going to hold Alt to copy it. So I have my 2 triangles, and I'll select both of them. And just like I did with that circle on the last one, I'm going to minus the front again. And it knocks that shape right out of there. We've got our first one. Our next shape has 6 sides, so I'm going to hit the up arrow 3 times to get 6 sides on our polygon. I'm going to make sure it's right over top of our green shape here, like that. Again, I'll move it to the right. I'm going to hold down Shift to make sure it's moving in a straight line, and Alt to make sure it's copying. And then I'm going to unite my 2 shapes. The last of our polygons has more sides. So I'll use my up arrow to add those sides onto there until we have the right number. I'm going to hold down my Shift to keep it square, and I'm going to use my space bar to move it to the right spot. Once I've got it in the right place, I'm going to select it. I'm going to move it using Shift, hold down Alt to copy it until it's in the right spot. And then I will hit Control D to duplicate that action so that I have 3 of my shapes. And again, I'm going to use the Exclude tool. So again, I've excluded where they overlap. So you'll see I have all 3 shapes there. And last but not least, the stars. And these ones, as we know, can get a little tricky. We're going to draw our first star and drop it in right there. Now we actually want to create another star in the exact same spot. So I'm going to zoom in nice and close on this one. I'm going to select my star and I'm going to go Edit, Copy, and Edit, Paste in Place. So it's going to put that star exactly where it is. I'm going to grab the Rotate tool and I'm going to come all the way around, hold down Shift so I know it's exactly 180 degrees. I'm going to put it right there. Now I want to grab any of these handles and I want to start scaling it. I don't want to squash it like that, so I'm going to hold Shift to make sure it's scaling proportionally. And I'm also going to hold Alt to make sure that it's scaling from the center. And I want to scale it so that it's right on this point here. And then again using Shift so that it's on these points here. And that'll give me those 2 stars I need. I can select them, click the Exclude tool, and then give it its color. Just like that. Onto my green stars here. I have 2 6-sided stars that we're going to unite together. So I will start by drawing my star and holding Shift to make it nice and square. I'm going to remove a point actually. I want 6, not 7. I'm going to get it in the right spot. And as we know with stars, we want to draw until our inside points are lining up. And then we want to hold down our Control button to scale our outside points, just like that. And then I want to move this shape and hold Alt. I'm just going to pop it up here for now. Now what I want to do is use my white arrow tool so that I can select this specific point here. And I'm going to click and drag, and I'm going to drop it right on top of the top point of that other star so that we know they're in the exact same spot. Then I can select both shapes and unite them. Now, because there was a little bit of a gap in between our spaces here, we have this line that we don't want. We know that the black arrow tool lets us select the entire shape, whereas the white one lets us select specific points. I'm going to draw a box around those points. I'm going to hold down Shift and also draw a box around these points. So I've selected just the points here and here that I don't want. I'm going to go up to Object, Path, and Remove Anchor Points. And it's going to get rid of those for me. Then I'll give it that green color that we want. And last but not least, this fancy blue star. We're going to start with the first shape. We need to add some points. We want to get our inside points to the right locations. Hold down Control, change our outside points until we have our star. Then we're going to move it. I'm going to hold down Shift to get it to go in a straight line and Alt to copy. And once it's in the right spot, I'm going to put it there and then hit Control D to duplicate that action. So now I have all three of my stars. And again, I'm going to use my Exclude tool to knock out those parts where it's overlapping and give it the proper fill color. So now if I zoom out, looks like I forgot my fill color on my two stars here. So I'll use my eyedropper tool for that. I want to hide my template layer. I've got all my vector shapes showing. I'm going to make sure that I file, save as. We can click don't show again and save on computer. I want to go to my OneDrive and my vector art folder, and I want to save my advanced shapes worksheet.ai. Click OK. And I want to make sure that I do my file, export, and export as. I'm going to navigate to the same folder. And this time I want to change that type to a PNG. Let's make sure we're inside our vector art folder. There we go. And we'll hit export. Again, we want to give it a white background color so we can see our shapes. And let's bump it up to 150 resolution. And then OK. And there we have our advanced shapes worksheet. We can go ahead and submit that on our VLE and move on to our geometric logos.